Okay, so now we can start to really fine-tune things here. And one of the things that I've decided to do is to increase the interest in the typography. Georgia is a great font, I love it, but it's pretty run-of-the-mill. It's one of the most common fonts available, so we can change things up by applying a web font. Now I've gone ahead and picked one from Google already. So right after our style sheet link in our HTML file, I'm just going to paste in the link for the Google web font that they have given me on the website. All I did was cut and paste that. And then I'm going to apply that to our style sheet as well. So first I need to save the HTML, and in the CSS here, right above the H1 and the H2, I'll create a rule for both of them because I want both headings to have this font. And I'll just say that the font family. So again, this is the name of the font, cut and paste from Google. And as a backup, I'll put in Georgia, Times, and Serif. So if we save that and hit refresh in the browser, you can see we've got a little more styled font available to us. Jumping back in here, we can go and look to add in some rules for our table. So I'll just tack that in at the end. So the table, a good rule is to always put in the border collapse rule. Oops. Just to collapse any gaps that some browsers might apply. I want it to span the full width of our wrapper div. I want everything to text align to the center. And the background color to be a shade of gray. So if we jump back here to see how it looks, it's not too bad. Maybe a little darker there. Let's go with a darker gray, hit refresh. Now it stands out a little better. It's more legible this way compared to before. Now the only other thing that we're missing is an image of fish and chips that I had down here before. So we can go ahead and add that in. So it'll come in right after the list in the sidebar. So back to our HTML file and find the end of our sidebar here. We can add in an image tag. Having trouble typing at the moment. It's important to always put in that alt tag so the screen readers and search engines can find the image easily and successfully. And we can also put in a little paragraph explaining what the image is. There's our image with our text. Now I have sized this image smaller than the actual sidebar because I've already gone ahead and done all of the math. To style this up a little more, in our CSS we can go and add a rule. There's only one image, so we don't need to be careful here, but we could create a class specifically for it. And I'm going to add a 2-pixel border, so 2 pixels all the way around. Again in gold, the FC0. Going to put padding of 30 pixels all the way around and create background color. Let's go with that light gray we had before. Now I also want to style the text for that just a little bit. So I'm going to say that the paragraph with the class of cutline, I want to call it the cutline for the image. I'm going to add that class in just to make sure that anything I apply here doesn't apply to any other paragraph. I'm going to say that I want that centered. Oops. And we'll go with that darker gray that we had before. So if I come back here and hit refresh, you can see the border and the padding with the background color has applied to the image. But this has not been changed. It should be centered. And that is because we did not give it a class here. So save that, and when I hit refresh, we get the darker gray and centered. We could even go ahead and add in something like a font style of italic, just to make it stand out a little bit more. So now we've got a web page that looks very similar to our original mock-up, with the exception of I haven't bumped the footer over, but we could just text align that to the right and fix that issue. So that is a basic process to adding everything together, all of our CSS and HTML, and building a layout. Now, if you have stopped to look at the styles folder, you'll see that there's two other CSS files. Alternate CSS, which is already full of stuff, and alternate 2, which is already full of stuff. So I'm just going to go and open up the index finished, the third file. This is all of the code, nice and finished. And if I go and look at that index finished in the browser, oops, 03, there we go. There is the finished page. Now if I jump back into our browser, let's just close all of these other files here, and if I change the style sheet to alternate CSS and hit save and refresh that, we get a different design. All the HTML is exactly the same. All I did was tweak the CSS. This is a good example of how powerful CSS truly can be as a separate file. When we link it, we can change everything about our content. We've kept the content and the design separate from each other, which means that all we have to do to redesign something is adjust the CSS file and link it back to any and all pages on the site, and they all inherit the new set of rules. And CSS is pretty powerful when you think about this was the same as what we just saw, and this is the same HTML file. But it's a very different looking page than what we had before. And nothing about the semantics of the HTML has changed. It's all just changing up the CSS rules that we've put in place. So CSS is a very powerful tool, and it's something worth keeping in mind that this is why we always keep our CSS and HTML separate as much as we possibly can.